Hi there, I'm Dave Karger here at the IMDb studio at Toronto 2019, presented by Intuit QuickBooks. Joining me now are the director and stars of The Personal History of David Copperfield, Hugh, Laurie, Armando Iannucci, and Dave Patel. Hi guys, hello. Great to see all of you. That's our studio audience. Just to wake you up a little bit.
Such a hangover as well.
You have yes, you are right off your successful premiere last night, so try to put a sentence together if you can. Armando, obviously this Dickens novel has been adapted before, but you were obviously excited to do something quite different with it. What excited you the most?
It has been adapted, but not in film very often, actually. I think the last adaptation was late 60s, early 70s. This book, I just read it again 4 or 5 years ago, and it struck me how contemporary it was. It's a very modern, it's all about status anxiety and am I doing the right thing? What do people think of me? People worrying about their past, and it's a lot of neuroses in it, and yet also increasingly relevant themes like homelessness and poverty, and the existence of wealth and poverty next to each other, and it's funny. That's the other thing. The characters are so real but so funny, and I've never really seen the humor conveyed in adaptations. So for me, it just felt natural. There was a scene in the book where Betsy Trotwood, David's aunt, is observed by David running out of the house and just hitting people who are riding across a garden on donkeys. And at that point, I thought, right, this is the film I want to make.
And it has to be Tilda Swinton.
And it has to be Tilda Swinton hitting people on donkeys, yes.
Right. For Dev and Hugh, what were your first reactions to meeting with Armando and hearing about his ideas for what he wanted to do with this?
Go, you take this, Dev. Take it, run with it.
This will be good.
Yeah. Oh no, the pressure. This is what it was like on set. What was the question again? Sorry.
Just your first reaction to meeting with him and hearing what he wanted to do.
Yeah, like Armando's just the biggest Dickens fan. So I was sitting with this man, and he just had this childlike glee in his eyes when he was talking about the story. And I was one of those people who'd never read the book before. I'd totally, missed it growing up. And he laid out this incredible story that felt still to this day so relevant, and I was just very grateful that he entrusted me with this role, and I got to hang out with this lot over here.
All right. How about yourself?
Similar, but on a much smaller scale. I had a conversation with Armando, and he described his ideas about Mr. Dick, and I, as it happened, had read the novel, but so long before that it was hazy to me. And when I read the script, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever read. It's the way it deals with time and perspective, and characters commenting on themselves at different stages of their life, and it's sort of playing with their memories and how their memories inform who they are now. It was just an extraordinary thing to read. And I was in very quickly. Well, I would have been in anyway, because he's a very persuasive gentleman.
And I've got the negatives. So,
Who was the most unpredictable member of the cast on set? Human or animal or anything?
Well, there is Jip the dog,
whose
real name was Pickles, I think. Pickles.
Jip wasn't a real name?
Yes.
I feel so embarrassed.
No. I met Pickles, and we talked about Jip and how Pickles saw Jip, and yes, Pickles was great.
What about? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, everyone was great. In particular, like Peter, for me, Peter Capaldi was so funny. There's a particular scene where Mr. McCorber, who plays his character, Mr. McCorber, who somehow just keeps surviving in the funniest fashion, and he ends up at this school that David's at, and he pretends to be a teacher there and teach Latin grammar, and it's very, very funny. We spent hours just watching Peter just riff on all these words, and trying to keep a straight face.
Well, anyone who loves In the Loop will hope that you never make a movie without Peter Capaldi. He has to appear in some form. What about Tilda Swinton? Your characters spend a lot of time together.
Yes, and that was an absolutely glorious experience. I've actually known Tilda for a very long time, and of course she has had this extraordinary, I mean, unparalleled career as a sort of indie artist, of someone of an iconic figure. And what you don't expect is that she's just going to be such an absolute blast. I mean, she's so funny and so quick and so clever and inventive, but also so engaged in the whole process. So she was an absolute delight, and I felt very, very blessed. So thank you for that introduction.
No, and for those obviously who haven't seen the film since it's only just been premiered, you and her character, they're a sort of a double act all the way through. They're sort of feeding off each other and helping each other and supporting each other. And you worked out a kind of body language and gestures, clicks and so on because your character sometimes gets a bit lost in the
I
moment.
play a character who is essentially mentally ill. And thanks to Tilda's character, Betsy Trotwood, I'm at least given a chance of finding not exactly. I'm not cured exactly, but finding I have a chance at joy and peace and a sort of security that I would not otherwise have had, because that was not a good time to be mentally ill. It probably never is, but that particularly was not a good time. And it's a very I find it a very touching relationship between these two characters, and I don't know. I hope it works.
Dev, would you say you've ever been involved in a project that's kind of reveled in the joy of colorblind casting as much as this one does? That's one thing that a lot of people seem to be enjoying about the film.
Yeah, I mean, I really am so lucky that Armando was so brave, really, and he believed in me when I didn't believe in me, and I was like, okay, how are people going to react towards someone like me in this world? And he had it was his faith and his positivity that gave me confidence. And everyone keeps talking about diversity, but I prefer the word representation. And I think the idea of me totally have missed this story growing up. Now we're going to have a whole new generation of youth watching this film, and hopefully they'll see a face on the screen that they can relate to. And it becomes accessible to a whole load more people, and I think that's what makes it really relevant and relatable.
And Armando, what did you say to potential actors who, when you offered them the role, said, "Are you sure?"
Well, it was interesting because I never saw you. I mean, you said if it's the easiest thing in the world. I always thought of Dev as David Copperfield. So when I said in an earlier interview when I saw you in Lion, I thought, there's David. And I didn't have anyone else in mind. And so that instantly spoke to the idea of, even though we're doing it in 1840, we want people to behave as if for the people in the film, 1840 is now. That's their present. That's modern. And so I want the audience to feel that they're watching people living their life now. So it didn't really strike. I just wanted to cast the best people for the best parts, irrespective of. And also the theme of the film as well. The theme of the story is stop worrying about your background or where you're from, what your status is, what your class is, whether you're rich or poor, or whether you live over there or here, or it's not about that. It's about connectedness and community. So I do remember Nikki, who plays Mrs. Steerforth, Nikki Wickerburg, who just said, "Can I wear a bonnet?" I never get to wear a bonnet. Yeah. And I said, "You will have a bonnet."